There you go.
All right, how you doing, guys? Welcome to the Blue Horseshoe Club podcast, episode 1. We survived our pilot from last week. That was a really good time. And we're back again. I'm Rodin, and this is a podcast for current events, meta news, and player happenings. So let's go ahead and have everybody introduce themselves. Let's go ahead and start with Caleb.
Hey guys, I'm Caleb. I am the founder of the SCC Lounge, and I am also now the CEO of Eve Guardian.
All right, APOP, our main tech guy for the day, bringing it home.
The savior.
All right.
We knew he was the Messiah.
Hey guys, I am Apotheny, and I'm currently frantically trying to make sure the stream is working okay. I set this up about 10 minutes ago, so if the sound levels are wrong, if anything's not coming through, chuck it in stream chat and I'll try and fix it as best I can. I'll probably be quiet for the first 2 minutes while I finish setting everything up, but lovely to be here.
All right, and Veronica.
I'm Veronica. I'm the founder and CEO of Eve Mobile, and I'm here to just chat up and talk about these vanity items we've got.
Nice. All right, so we'll go ahead and jump into our topics. And one of the main reasons we have APOT here with us today is one of the things we want to talk about is value and vanity. All right. So personally, this is something way out of my my scope. All right, I'm a cheap PvPer. I do market stuff, but it's just a different scope of when you talk about that kind of money. So hopefully, Apotheny can describe kind of like how that the value of ships. When you're talking about like AT price ships, right? And are they really worth that much as far as the performance that you get out of those ships? And at what point does it just simply become it's a nice to have, but I wouldn't undock that thing? So what do you think about those concepts there, Apod?
So I think that as with anything in Eve, it's worth as much as people are willing to pay for it. By the way, let me know if background noise is a problem, and I'll try and fix that. But yeah, so like anything on the market, it's worth what you pay for it. So when it comes to unique ships, there are a limited number in the game. There will never be any more Atanas, there'll never be any more Rabisus, all the way through for all the uniques that have ever been gifted out for the Alliance tournament. So really, theoretically, they have unlimited value as more get lost, as more get banned. When it comes to are they worth it to fly, I would say that the Rabisu in the Atana, under the other current AT rules, yes, absolutely. They are probably worth more than 200 bill at the moment because they are so good, and not only do you need to have them, you want other people to not be able to have them, because not only are they amazing ships in their own right, they allow you to skip a logistics ban. You can currently ban a Nero's Guardian, and against a team without a Rabisu, they can no longer bring a good armor team. If they have a Rabisu, suddenly all their armor teams are back on the table. So just for the banning meta, they are worth hundreds of billions, and they will win you Alliance tournaments.
Oh, I love hearing you rant about AT stuff because the passion is so powerful, but you might need to slow it down just a little bit so I actually understand what you're saying, because we are talking to market people and maybe some of the stuff that's technical from the AT.
Sorry, this is like my third podcast of the day, so I'm in full Apotheny passion mode. So ask me a question and I will try and give you a simple answer without going into too much crazy specifics.
Okay, if you look at this from many of the things that caused me to invite you was the fact that the Plex is going crazy. I'm sure you've noticed this. And one of the things we were talking about was that because of the Plex bidding when it comes to the AT, maybe some of the impact of the extreme rise in price could be tied directly into the fact that people are saving their Plex and not really putting it to market, and maybe even are buying up because they actually need to put it in the bid. So what I'm basically thinking of is when it comes to these ships, especially when it comes to price and what you can win, how much do you have to feel? How much money are we really talking about churning through the whole AT thing? How much of it is those extremely expensive ships? How many teams can actually afford to field these things. So if you could just try and elaborate on the financial stuff of the AT.
So I am not and never have been a team captain, so I'm not the perfect person to talk to, but I do have some broad idea. If you are an AT team running in the AT, it is advisable to have pre-bought multiples of every ship and module you are likely to use during the Alliance tournament before the tournament starts. Not only do people do things such as buy out Sleipnirs, buy out TFIs, the popular tournament ships, so that they are crazy expensive on the day and people will know who bought them, you will end up with situations where, oh my god, the market's run out, I can't bring this comp anymore. You don't want to be in that situation ever. So imagine buying multiples of every ship and module in the game to begin with. On top of that, you need a flagship, which can go up to like 100 bill. So your Scorpion Navy issue, that's going to be like 80 to 90 bill. We saw the average last year. I think Fleet Decked Out Balgorns are a bit less. And then, if you are planning on having an 80 ship cache, i.e. you are planning on getting top 4 or maybe even top 8, you need a cache of 80 ships. Not an 80 ship, a cache of 80 ships, which is easily like a trillion-isk minimum.
So it's basically like you need money to make money and perform well, right?
Yeah.
I was claiming something
changes...
earlier, pardon me, that I really want you to answer, because I'm not entirely sure if I'm right, but considering the cost in Plex and ISK spend, right? How does that compare to the prizes that pay out? Because if I'm not mistaken, isn't this basically CCP giving out more value in prizes than you can even start putting in there?
Well, I think the current estimate for the value of winning an Alliance tournament is about 5 trillion-isk. I think that's accurate. Because it's 25 80 cruisers, 25 80 frigates, and then all the skins you get rolling through. And obviously that will vary depending on how valuable the 80 ships are. Like, obviously, if you're getting given Frekkies, they are, like, basically worthless. They're just 90 bill because they're collector's items. But if you're getting given Rabisus or Etanas, obviously that's a frigate to cruiser difference. But say, I don't know, call it like a Mimir or something. Like, 80 cruisers is bad. That's like 100 bill, you double your money by having a good 80 ship. So definitely the prize can increase or decrease based on the value of the 80 ship, whether or not it is tournament viable, firstly, and whether or not it is tranquility viable. So ships like the Kremos, for example, and to some extent the Moraka, they are very tranquility viable ships. They are fun for really rich people to go out and do solo and small gang PvP in.
But I think what I was asking was not necessarily for the individual team. I was more thinking about the whole holistic thing and the macroeconomic thing, that isn't there more value coming out of the entire tournament than is actually put in, both with the sinking of Plex and with the expenditures of ISK in general. So do you think that there's
off the
a
top
lot
of my
more?
head, yeah, like I cannot imagine all of, just like even the flood of skins alone is a ton of money. So like 80 skins, like I think 2 years ago skins go for 2 bill at the moment. The current skins go for 4 bill. I think you get, is it like 5 skins per match win or something? So like if you win any number of your matches, you're pretty much making your Plex value back, and that's before you even get into the winner's bracket. So I think that it is certainly true that value is being added to the game through the BPCs of the prize ships and through the creation out of nowhere of skins. But it is not obviously ISK positive or negative, because it is Plex to enter and it is items out.
Yeah, exactly. So ISK positive-wise, it's more that the conversion of value is at least a net positive. What brought this on is that I'm a little bit angry at you guys, because you basically messed up my predictions, because my brain was still working in, I don't know, 3 years ago or something like that, when vanity items and skins were not really kicking off that much. And Reaver has been laughing at me because I actually thought that it was still very niche to do all that skin trading.
I mean, I've got a bone to pick with you, my
been...
friend. You told me that the intelligent thing to do with the Plex changes was to wait until, don't buy Plex before patch day, wait until patch day, then buy Plex, because ISK is going to hit an all-time low, and you'll make mad money.
I'm trying to shift the blame because I did not know that there was that much money running around in the vanity items. So I'm basically blaming all you vain
But
guys.
honestly, I honestly don't think that the Alliance tournament has had any significant impact on the current Plex increases we see. Like
No. But it's a part of a perfect storm, right? You get the slump, so you don't get the influx of anyone cashing in and selling Plex. You don't get the effect that I had expected, that the utility would drop, because the utility actually went up because all of that stuff from the Aurum store was suddenly hitting the Plex market. And I didn't know that it was that big. And so it's a lot of factors at once. They were talking about it in Talking Stations today, and I think also on Open Comms, what is actually causing this extreme spike. And there's so many factors that I did not actually consider that it had so much new utility. I was thinking that this was going to be like a normal split, and then you were going to get the effect from the slump. But what you actually got was a new product, which is basically the hype cycle. So you get this explosive price, and then it's supposed to come down on the other side of the peak. I don't know when that's going to be, and I'm very sorry to anyone that followed my advice that the price was going to go down. That's not going to be something you see at least until like 2 or 3 months out.
Yeah,
Well, Lockbox said the same thing too, right? So
pretty much everyone agreed. It's because that was expected. If it had been the same product that only gave game time, that's exactly what you would expect. But because there's so many other factors that you can, you have to use it for the AT, you have to use it for skins. Suddenly, you don't have you have an increased competition. You have all of these the change, right? You guys all know the thing that you go to the mall and you buy sausages and you get 5, and then you have to buy bread and then you get 7, and you have to figure out what's the common division. So you're forced to buy more. All of those change things suddenly got released. They're no longer locked up in the Aurum.
It's kind of interesting, man, because I didn't realize you guys actually call it to go low.
Okay, and there's a lot of accounts, right? A lot of players that might not be cashing in on their Aurum yet, and then there's the whole thing of the holding pattern that a lot of the speculators and even the people that have the Aurum won't convert it just yet. They want to see the peaks, right? So it's a holding pattern with all these added effects of the hype cycle. So it's kind of interesting. I'm very pleasantly surprised. I think this is very good. I don't know what the solution is going to be, but it's definitely something that's going to cause discussions, and how do we resolve this, and is CCP going to do an intervention? And yeah, it's going to be interesting days ahead. It's definitely not going to be a boring summer.
Yeah, I mean, like right now we're already experiencing 365-day highs on Plexus. If you were if you were to think of the pricing of Plex to have stayed the same and didn't split, it's like what Plex is basically 1.3 1.4 bill right now, somewhere around there.
No, it's in the realm of what, 1.7, right? Compared to fuel prices. So it's gone up about 40%. So it's like crazy numbers.
Wow. Yeah, and at the same time, it doesn't feel like, well, unless your sole purpose of buying Plex is to just stay subscribed, then you can kind of feel the pinch. But if you're a vanity guy, I just want these clothing, these skins, it made buying Plex more attractive, right? Because it's less hassle now. Because of because it's just Plex equals vanity items instead of, Aurum and gets me this, and it's not really I don't get my change back, you know what I mean, stuff like that. So
when it comes to vanity stuff, I think it's hard to see how many people buy skins just for themselves, and it never really hits the market much. For example, we know that the EVNT skins this time around, when we did the Corax Caracal Drake, which were available in the New Eden store, they weren't actually prizes for the last EVNT Collides. They are either some of the most popular or the best-selling skins CCP have ever released under the new skin system. So, and I don't, to my knowledge, the market trading, if you look at the actual things in game, isn't particularly insane. It's a lot of people go, I want that for myself, I buy it, and it never really sees much effect on the in-game market.
Oh, and I do have a little bit of a thing that I was going to mention, because I had Rain suspected of actually trying to do a marketing stunt, because she was really flaunting the skins when she was flying in the Anger games, right? over on INN, and if she had a really big stack of those, that would make perfect sense that she was showing them off. So I'm just thinking, if I say want to sell one of those rare AT ships, could I maybe get in contact with a team to make you actually show how effective it is and how valuable it is, so I can sell it at a higher markup?
I mean, like, if you want to make a contract with an AT team, I know that all of them need tons of money, including PL, even though we've won a few tournaments. So, like, I'm sure people are open to sponsorships. I mean, I will happily, if there are any rich market guys out there, I will happily take a personal sponsorship and shout your name out whilst I'm doing hosting the first 2 weekends. I'll wear a little patch with, like, I don't know, Elizabeth Norn supported on, like, my chest.
Yes. Be careful about that one. Because no one might just take you up on that, and you have to go around.
Dude, if
it
the
on
money
all
is
the
right,
streams.
like I'm mad poor at the moment. I'm trying to get rid of this Titan at the moment to get some liquid.
Veronica, I know that if we ever do a team thing sponsorship for the AT, don't you think we should get a partner to be the mascot and run around in the Yeti suit?
Of course, yeah.
Yes.
Sounds great.
Just to touch on the other side that's not really AT related, when it comes to actual in-game stuff like actual doctrines, how important is the high end? Because of course we all know that sometimes you really need that extra bling to even get the fit to work, right? But how much do you think bling is added to doctrines just to get a little bit of an edge, and not necessarily a needed edge, but a nice to have edge?
I think that generally speaking, alliances will put out a minimum requirements fit. So if a T2 fit is fine, you can have a T2 fit. If you need to have Imp Navy enams, if you need to have a fancy faction MWD to be cap stable, then that will be in the minimum requirements, and people are allowed to bling as much as they love above that, but there will be a certain minimum requirement for the doctrine to work, and all the calculations will be done based on whatever minimum fit the alliance is putting out. So if you look at the Pandemic Legion Macarial fit, there are a couple on our kill boards at the moment. They are somewhat not T2, I think it's fair to say, but it also may be the case that a lot of people don't realize, I think, that there are so many blue and green mods that are really, really, really cheap. Like, they are just insanely cheap. Like, there was a time when you could get, like, what was it? I think it was like you could get like A-type specific shield hardeners for like 10 mil or something stupid like that. Like, why would you not put that on your battleship?
Yeah, some of them are actually below T2, right?
Yeah, and they are a million times better. For some things, like, there are personal things. So, like, I lost an apostle recently that was about 6 bill altogether, 6.5 maybe. Like, I fully X-type faction Concord rep out and in my apostle, because I know that with PL I need to tank a million dudes, because the only time people will ever fight PL is if they have a million dudes. So, like, I face tanked 12 dreads the other day, which is how I lost that apostle. But the only reason it died is because I mismanaged heat and burnt out one of the reppers. Like, a T2 fitted apostle will not face tank 12 dreads, not even close. But I held on just long enough that our backup managed to arrive, and we didn't whelp another buttload of Macarials.
Sorry, Riva is asking a question. What question?
So as far as that kind of threshold that needs to be met, I mean, it seems like the added demand over the last few years of basically going beyond T2 has been kind of normal, right? So I'm not sure how often these things drop, or how well people farm them, but it seems like like you mentioned, a lot of these faction modules, different variations of the faction modules have already dropping in price. I mean, is that something that we want to see, so as far as people being able to increase their performance along the competition to kind of just make it more fun combat game all around, right? Is that, or do we want to, or is that, or should we be aiming for kind of more of an elitist attitude towards that kind of stuff? But I think the market can support not an elitist attitude on that, because they're pretty abundant depending on which faction item you're looking at.
I mean, like, availability always trumps ISK, pretty much. For example, when large alliances want to run like command ship doctrines or navy faction battleship doctrines, there are not enough in EVE for an alliance to run them. Like I believe, I may be corrected here, that when the Imperium back in the heyday ran the Alpha fleet of TFIs, they got through so many TFIs through the hundreds of people they could put in fleet back in the day that there were no more TFIs in game. One of the reasons that people are using Max so much is because you can just farm more and more and more and more. But even then, we are still seeing more and more alliances still adopting Mac doctrines. Even though they were popular back in World War B, PL got on the Mac train recently. I think Test are about to convert to Macs as well. So like that's even more demand. So even though Macs are like super low price, we're already seeing their price rise because so many alliances have converted to them. The demand and availability are coming into it, and this is ignoring ISK entirely. It's when it comes to high ticket hulls. It's a case of buying out New Eden rather than, is this 100 mil too much or 100 mil too little. Generally speaking, when it comes to the elite, so PL, NC Dot, even some of your Test or whoever, those alliances who have SRP, alliances who have a relatively experienced member base, they will just buy the correct hull at the time. Like even Provi, they're flying Nightmares, man. I mean, they have them abundantly available, but like everyone is flying the top tier hulls, and it's availability that stops them rather than craziest price, in my opinion.
But you don't think cost efficiency has any play at all? I'm just reminded of, was it some old goon propaganda that was joking with the fact that something along the line of your ammo cost more than my ship, and I just beat you. So is it really a good idea for the other entities to keep blinging it up and not maybe weaponizing downwards in cost and efficiency, and maybe throwing man-hours at enemies instead of always trying ISK, because the ISK war is kind of uphill battle-wise if you compare to someone like the Imperium, or if you take the whole tier thing, then Imperium and CPL and so on and so forth, right? Shouldn't we start talking more about efficiency and not just throw tons of money in warfare? Well,
so ISK, certainly is a very big factor in deciding. And from my experience, I would say that you have doctrines that are So whenever you're in a war or in a combat, so like say you are a nomadic PvP alliance and you deploy to somewhere and you are fighting someone. So a very general setting. Or even if you're not nomadic, you are an alliance, you have deployed somewhere to fight someone. If you are just interested in the fights, you are not necessarily fighting a war against these people. If you're just there for the fights, then generally what happens is you will go into the fight, you'll go into the design of the doctrine going, this doctrine trades or this doctrine tanks. The idea of the doctrine is either that it will tank forever and not lose any ships on field, apart from fuck-ups, or it is designed to trade. And then you have the two extremes of, do I bling to the point where I tank everything, or do I cheapify to the point where I know I'm trading, with usually very little middle ground. So for example, if you think about the T3 AHAC comp, so the Legions, the Proteus, and Neros, that is a comp that is designed to not trade. If you're in a position where you are trading with that comp, you have brought the wrong comp. If you are trading, then you're best going to other comps that trade well. So if we look at the end of World War B, when goons were in Sindaya, they started bringing out Hurricane fleets, right? RTKs. And they had so many RTKs that T3 AHACs just didn't have the HP. It was a complete waste of time bringing T3 AHACs against them, because you'd be trading T3 AHACs for battle cruisers, and that's not a good trade. So what did a couple groups do? They brought back double, triple plated Abaddons, because those trade fine and are much better also at just having a block enough tank. So I'd say that you're not really looking at blinging on a scale to be able to tank or not. You're looking at am I planning to not take losses, or am I planning to take losses? And then you go to the extremum of either decision.
I think I'm talking about the investment of ISK, this is of course market related, the whole opportunity cost. What are you losing by putting that money in hardware all the time instead of putting it somewhere else. Now, I know that you yourself is a prolific writer on Crossing Zebras, and a very good writer for that case, but recently we saw the price wars in the media, which basically is that you get outcompeted on payment and salaries. So what about all that money that's flying around in ships? Maybe that could have been used on things that are more meta, or compensation for new guys to stay in the game, to not feel demoralized, to not to still have fun, right? I'm just thinking, I usually see this with some of the other big organizations. They don't think about the value of their ISK and where they put them.
Well, what else are you going to spend your ISK on if you are let's say that, where the big money is happening, right? Think about high number of player nullsec fleet entities, where this is going to be like the biggest case of what you're talking about, right? What are you spending your money on that is not SRP? There are some things, certainly.
I would maybe consider skill points,
structures.
Right? Giving your newbies skill points injectors to help them advance faster.
Well,
I would spend some of that money in creating my own media outlets. I would spend some of that money in compensating for other things inside the organization on a more massive scale, so it doesn't feel as if you're losing compared to, say, if you go out and fly in space. Because some will say, well, playing EVE is about shooting entities in space. Yes, it is, but the meta is really valuable because that brings in all the other content that creates all this. I think I heard someone in the media just whining recently about the fact that something about moons being nationalized, and I know I'm goonsplaining here, but the fact that they actually take out that money, put it in a budget for other things that create renown, brand name, new recruits. Why are they not doing this? They just got, 7,000 new members, or at least new accounts. I don't know exactly how many of those are real people, but why not take part in that aspect of the fighting as well? I don't see that yet.
Well, I think that there is a separation, I would say, between those things. So if you look at the Pandemic Horde and the Pandemic Legion, those are two very separate entities. And to the best of my knowledge, the finances are entirely separate. I don't know if Horde were given a budget to begin with from PL to start with, but to my knowledge, Horde's income is Horde's income and spent on Horde things. PL's income is PL's income and spent on PL things. So when you have an alliance that does benefit from giving younger players skill injectors, from giving them skill books, that is part of that organization, and the doctrines they tend to run will be the T1 things with high insurance payouts, SRPs low, and that is where the money is focused. When you are talking about the groups that tend to bling their fits, so your PLs, your NCs, when Goonswarm have their elite special interest groups, all that kind of stuff, I think that you look... If I were a big-time alliance financier who for some reason had to take both of those in consideration, I would have my budget, and that would be a decision. I would put X amount of billions towards the SRP fund for this month, and I would put Y amount of billions towards the new player support for the month, and that would be a decision at that level. And I certainly don't have any experience of running an EVE organization, so I unfortunately can't really comment on who does what and where the money goes.
No, I was just trying to point out that it makes little sense to me that some of the other entities that are whining about the fact that goons have all this money and they have all these outlets and all these added things. Yeah, because they invest in it, right? And this is what I don't see anyone else doing. And just to bring in Veronica here, you know how difficult it is to get coders to work on some of your projects, right? And if you don't have that money to compensate for that, because it is opportunity cost, you are losing time somewhere, right? And Apothony, when he spends hours on hours doing the event content and when he's writing and everything like that, then you're losing hours where you could be out either actually fighting or ratting or something else, right? If no one compensates you for your work, then you might actually not choose to do it.
Dude, if anybody wants to donate to me so I can write more stuff and spend less time worrying about making money, I'm more than happy to take donations, dude. Like, it's great. It's fine.
My point is that it
I'm
should
on
be
board
more of an
that train.
investment doing that, right? Someone with a lot of money, someone that actually gets something back for that good content. Wouldn't you say, Veronica, that something like coding is extremely time demanding?
It is, yeah.
You have to fucking pay for it.
And that's why a lot of the stuff I do myself, because it's cheaper for me to do it, in my eyes, and to hire someone else to do it.
It's the same when Veronica wrote a post about the whole problem with the fact that no one is calculating the cost of actually running structures to pay for the fuel. They're just competing on this race to the bottom.
That's kind of that's a thing that's been happening forever, right? Because a lot of people in Eve, in most games that are complicated like Eve, a lot of people forget the actual value of syncing in real time to do an activity. A lot of people kind of just are, this is the inputs, this is the output. That's all I'm worried about. But then when really the picture is a lot bigger than that.
Oh, by the way, we usually have a semi-open mic policy. So, Proto, if you want to come in and say hi, and that goes for Eric as well, and if you have comments or questions, please just poke me in the Eve Guardian Discord. I'm going to link it to you.
There was a question I saw a little while earlier when we were talking about Eve NT and tourney stuff. There was a question asked by Okulo. Do NT match experience translate into AT matches? Yes and no. No, in that Eve NT format is completely different to the Alliance tournament format. Your theory crafting in terms of what comps you bring and practice flying those comps, Eve NT will not give you any of that. You really have to treat the AT theory crafting meta as its own thing that you can only learn by looking at the Alliance tournament. However, when you organize a group of people to be a tournament team, when you are used to working together, when you have that infrastructure within your organization set up, when it's funded, when you are used to flying together, when you are used to communicating together, you have an AT team there. One of the biggest failings of a bunch of teams that come out in the early round of the Alliance tournament is that they didn't set up to do enough practices, or they weren't used to working together, or they weren't ready to fly things. They were completely unprepared and had nothing by way of a internal structure to do well. Like the best way I would analyze it is saying that, let's say a new huge feature comes into the game that is unlike anything else at all. It is a commonly said thing that the Imperium would be one of the best suited groups to be able to engage and get the most out of that content and win that content, because they already have such a huge organizational structure. Even if everybody in the game is working on zero experience of that, dealing with that content, having that organization, having people working together, having leadership structures, having that organizational core and that practice working together, that is a huge, huge, huge deal in terms of ability to create things.
That's very true. I find that, at least in my opinion, the higher tier Alliance tournament teams are pretty close knit, and they just work a lot with each other, so they know exactly what they're going to do.
See, PL has always been the exception to that rule. Not that we don't know each other, but PL has never been the group that wins through like extreme piloting skill, as the Tuskers, the Hydras, the Camels, whoever you want to talk about does. They've been more focused on the theory crafting, so that's more, PL has more succeeded through just having massive arguments as to what the best thing is and having a lot of setups in their back pocket. But it is certainly, you are certainly right that almost without exception, just having a tight-knit group of nerds that are used to working together, that communicate well, that know each other, that is the fundamental core of what is going to make a strong AT team.
Yeah, I was just managing roles a little bit. I think what I would like to transition into is what Veronica is doing with the whole. Lost my train of thought. We all remember what happened with the recent thing with offshoring. There's a new little feature or bug that's been worked on when it comes to industry indexes. And I don't know if you want to tell us a little bit about what's happening? I know there's some news coming out about it soon, but could you tell us a little bit of how that's proceeding and what it's actually about?
Sure. So if any of you know ProBag, he's the one who actually helped me a lot with this. Basically, you can reverse engineer how many job hours is in each system. That essentially lets you know what's building in that system, manufacturing-wise. So what I'm working with ProBag is an API to allow people to see how many job hours in each system, and even if there's an increase in hours there. So I think like a dread's probably about 500 hours total. So that might be wrong, but I'm probably thinking of 10 times that. But if you can see the increases in hours, then you can probably assume something's being built there.
So a new way of getting pretty much, well, not perfect knowledge, but at least knowledge to a degree that's even more relevant than anything we've had in the monthly economic reports, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's as accurate as the monthly economic reports, although from what I can tell or heard that those aren't even accurate at all. So,
well,
but this
is on a system. This is on a system level, right?
Yeah.
So you get a lot more specific intel from this.
Pretty much, I can tell you right now how much or how many job hours is in, say, Goon's home system, and you can kind of guess from that what's being built there.
So very soon we will be able to see exactly where stuff is being built in Delve and in the rest of the universe. So what strategic benefit do you think that will have, Botany, when we are moving into a war?
I mean, I think knowing where to hit people is obviously hugely valuable. Like, I hope I don't get kicked from the Alliance for saying this, but it is probably stupid to think that Pandemic Legion does not have some form of industry going on somewhere at some point. The super capitals we have didn't appear out of nowhere. The dreads and faxes we used didn't come out of nowhere. Certainly people buy them outside the Alliance. Certainly some people have their own thing going on. But I would say that generally speaking, every Alliance who operates on a level where capitals are commonly used will have some form of internal industry, even if it's like semi-contracted that some members run themselves. So when all this information come out, the more granular we get with the information about the economy of each region, it will be much more obvious and require a lot less work for people to go, oh, if I want to go screw with these guys, they're building their shit here and here. Like, I know that there are a whole bunch of alliances that don't necessarily hold a bunch of space or don't like build stuff in their own space. They rent from someone else, build all their stuff there under the protection of someone else, and then ship it to where they actually live and do their actual stuff with after that, which is what amazes me when people go, we can't hit such and such an alliance. They don't have any space to own. Sure, they may not have any space to own, but they make their ISK somehow. And one of the things with distributed income, if you have an alliance of the elite PvPers who sort their own stuff out, it can become harder. Like, I make a bunch of my money, mostly through writing articles, through market trading, and through I do some Red Frog freight. I'm actually quite poor. My ISK inflow isn't good. But it is very, very hard to disrupt those things. Also, what I do for ISK, maybe entirely separate from what the next person in Fleet does me for someone else from ISK, which is entirely different to what somebody else might do for ISK. So it's hard to say, for example, this is where we hit PL to stop their ISK inflow, because it's so distributed through New Eden, and it might be part of other alliances. You know, we might have alts in other alliances that do industry, and that money comes to us or whatever, and that can be true for anyone. So I think that, to go back to your point, the more granularity and the more information we have, and the easier access to information we have as to who makes their money where and how, it will lead to a much more interesting ability to disrupt the logistics and income flow for various groups when war happens, rather than just throwing each other at wherever you've got your flag planted.
Yeah, and I know that the abortion imagery is, of course, something that people don't really like, but at least from a predator-prey dynamic, or when you talk about things like supers and titans, these are the apex predators. We all pretty much agree on that. And if
Dread
you
bombs,
can see,
dread bombs are the big deal at the moment. Like, super capital fleets are, to be honest, at the moment primarily defensive.
yeah, but the point is that you now have a situation where you can see where they have their birthing dens, right? So you can actually go after their young. And
this is true.
That's
but you have to deal with all the ones they've already built, right?
Yeah, but the point is that no one likes getting one of their babies killed in the den, right? So they would be forced to feel the big stuff if you actually go and hit those things where you can see that they're being built, and especially if they're being built on a massive scale, right?
Yeah, I'm curious about that the code though, because I'm not a coder or anything like that, so I'm actually pretty ignorant about it. But could we ever find ourselves in a position where enough salt builds up and CCP doesn't make it possible for that API to actually work to allow that visibility?
So it's all about reverse engineering. What we do is we watch a system that we know is at like a zero manufacturing at all. And then you watch the index. And CCP actually released their formula on how they calculate the cost index for the system. And using that, you can reverse engineer how many job hours, using the job hours that you put in, what the global index is.
And I can just comment on that.
From there, we can.
I'm not a coder. I don't have any of the understanding of code that Jeronica has, but I saw the script and it's extremely simple, almost ridiculously simple, and I was a little bit shocked.
Oh yeah, it's so easy to reverse engineer. If you know the job hours exactly in each system and the cost index of that system, then you can get the job hours for the entire universe. And from that, you can apply that to any system in Eve using the cost index and calculate how many hours is in there.
And I think I would like to, that's my personal little beef, that I would like to argue the fact that this whole design came in because CCP had decided that the solution to the missing slots for building and stuff, and the problem of getting that up to scale, right? Because people were plugging it and they were always unavailable. The solution to that with the industry patch way back now was to add infinite slots everywhere, right? Which means that now it no longer has a value. The slot itself is worthless.
Yeah, you're right. I mean,
so the workaround to make sure that there's some sort of sync or anything is to then put this industry index, which is basically some sort of I don't know, almost a borderline communistic type of economy. But the point is that then they sync it out, but they allow this free and abundant resource to be available. And they can't really take it out because then there will be no sync, right?
I mean, because there has to be, which I don't know. Like as the years have gone by, it feels like the barriers to really high end industry, like very well scaled industry, keeps dropping. I mean, that's good. I get it. You know, to let people in on that kind of gameplay, but at the same time, the ability to really find an area of that industry where you can really punch a hole through and be super efficient. I mean, those spots are becoming very, very rare. So I'm not sure if
it's just, the point is that once you've maxed the system, right? Because it's system based, it's not individual structure or station based, right? So say when any of the surrounding structures in and around Jita reaches a certain point, it's the same. It's all the same. It's all the same cost, right? So there is no incentive for players to actually have structures there, except for maybe vanity. Jeronica is running some of the Mogul ones, and Pandemic Horde is running a lot of structures, but they have no proper income because there is no way of competing when everyone is equal.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah. That's very true. That's very.
The point is that what you would want in an ideal situation is that there's a limited amount of slots, that the NPC slots get plugged, just like offices, and then the price just keeps going up. And as the price goes up, the players can then compete with that and have a proper income, right? So then you can pay for your fuel and you can get some profits, and then you have the incentive of actually going and shooting your competitors and stuff like that. Because if everyone is just flat zero, it's just a trolley-like competition, really, right?
Well, that is building from NPC stations still attractive enough to actually do? It seems like it is. I mean, otherwise people would be using,
once it's maxed, right? Once it's up in the max range of the industry index, the cost is the same, right, Veronica?
Yeah, the cost would be the same. The only difference would be the fee the facility charges you, which for I charge 5% and stations charge 2%, so it's already a discount to use my structure. Plus you get the ME and TE bonus, but yeah, that just depends on if you have the structure in the system and the organization that wants to support that structure. Lately, I've been pulling back on all my industry structures in EVE because they're just not making any money.
That's the point, right? That's the problem. They can't make any money because they can't compete on anything. There is no difference to compete with.
Yeah, I mean, and the other side of kind of like that dynamic as well is, this weekend I think we killed 3 citadels this weekend, but at the same time, like that's like a 2-week operation, man. You know what I mean? Like these things it takes too long to kill these things.
And the payment is too low, right? If it was on contract, now I know that you're in what's it called?
A wrecking machine.
The wrecking machine, right? Organizations that specialize in demolition jobs, right? They would get a lot more jobs in combination with mercenary groups, and you would basically see a lot of more activity if there was an actual profit in the structures to then pay for these services, whether they are benign or malevolent. The point is that we need these things to be part of the player ecosystem. This whole NPC protection that the CCP keeps running, it's just bad for the game, and it's definitely killing high sec because there's no reason to do anything anymore.
One of the things I'd quite like to see is I'd like to see a profession in where, I don't know if this is possible already, it may well be, I really don't know anything about most of EVE, but I'd love to see it is if there is an Astra House that is just up, but the guys who put it up have no plans to defend it beyond the mods that are on it, right? So no defleet is going to come out. I would like to see a case where a group could put together a fleet and take it down, and the act of taking it down is a reasonable-isk outcome. So salvaging the wreckage or whatever, the Astra House or the Fortress or whatever, such that if there's an Astra House up, and it's just kind of there, the guys who put it up don't really plan to defend it, it's just kind of up. If a PvP group's, right, we want to make some money, we'll go blow up the Astra House, take the wreckage, sell the salvage, and we'll make bank on that. I would love to see, it may already be possible, I have no idea if it is, I'd love to see the loot drops from Astra Houses be at a minimum such that that is a viable profession. It doesn't need to make mad money, but I would like to see it be viable. What do you guys think about that?
It is
the whole thing with the salvage. I think the salvage value should be considerable enough to warrant that type of activity. But that again ties into the fact that you need to reach a point where the real estate market in EVE is matured, right? Then it gets a little bit high range. But the point is that the older a structure is, the more the actual value can be written off, right? Because you've made your profit on it. So then as more and more of the real estate market becomes competitive and can build faster than they can be taken down, then you will end up with a place where the price is adequately low, so you can actually say that shooting one just to get the salvage to build one in another location makes sense. But all of these emergent economic factors and effects cannot arise if CCP does not put in proper bottlenecks and strain and classical supply and demand mechanics. This freebies for everyone. Everyone gets free minerals. Everyone gets free offices. Everyone gets free research slots, and there's no competition then. It's all just a race to the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, like right now, I mean, I can only speak of like how my alliance does it, but just know that as a player within my alliance that specializes in killing citadels, I get compensated in ISK for my time spent killing citadels. I profit as a player, as an individual player, by killing citadels. Now, how my alliance comes up with the business plan to make that doable, I can't really speak intelligently on that. Yeah, but just know that if you can develop business plans to accommodate profitability in the destruction of structures in high sec.
Indeed.
You really got to commit to it, though. That's the thing. And having the proper social circles does not, can only help you.
I'd like to say welcome to Eric. I've been Gar CCP here for a little while. I think maybe Eric would like to say his piece.
Oh, no. You made me come on here. I was fine in chat. But hello, everyone.
I know that you have a few opinions on these things, and I saw that you had a really nice article out. Was it today or yesterday?
Yeah, I think it was this morning. Yeah, I thought it was horribly written, but that's okay. But thanks.
Well, we are improving everywhere. We had technical problems. We needed to be saved by CSM Messiah Potney.
Right.
Wait, what?
You saved us on the technical side. We didn't have Eric around. What's your take on this whole thing with competition and the fact that there's no real good profitability in structures, Eric? I know that you talk a lot about structures and the design.
Oh, I think you're really hitting the nail on the head. I'm just not exactly sure how to solve that. But unlimited slots for everything just isn't a good thing, right?
Yeah, and I think way back in the day, I'm going to beat this dead horse for a second, and bear with me. It's the same problem when I keep trying to explain why we need to have characters allowed infinite market orders and contracts. Because the limit should be on where you are placing it, and the cost inferred should be where you're placing it, because that will make you want to move to a place that's more profitable. And then some will always say, well, then you're just going to plaster the entire universe with orders. Yeah, but you can't manage that. No one can, right? Even Rita Jeter is doing what, 25 accounts or something? And that's a whole pro bag level of ASPE, right? Most people won't do that. They will situate themselves in a few locations that they really like, and then they will not be limited in how much they can sell or how many different items they can sell or how many orders they will stack in that system. And the price would then, of course, be inferred and be paid to, say, a structure owner, especially when NPC starts dying and being nerfed to the ground, which is my hope.
Oh, I think we all hope that the NPC space shrinks, but yeah. I think I often wondered why they limited market orders the way they did and made them applied to skills. The only thing I could think of is maybe it was something early on, technically in the code versus the database, right?
It forces CCP to get more money because it requires more accounts to be subscribed to do the mass manipulation. I know, but I'm saying that is a net result.
Well, maybe yes, but it's also you're creating a type of space that's not as inciting in usage. So you're basically shooting your own foot, right? Or peeing your pants to get warm. It's not a benefit in the long run that you're forcing people to be these ASPEs, and they are actually then competing with new players that don't want to dedicate 4 hours a day or 1,000 clicks on doing PI or managing orders or managing industry. If you do it like that, you're basically limiting your number of players that might only want 2 accounts or 3 accounts by letting these people dominate.
Well, yeah. I mean, I probably have more Sino accounts than anything else, right?
So I have a question for you marketeers, as I am woefully incompetent at everything in EVE, basically, let's be honest. what is the impact on you guys for the situation that PvPers currently hate in the combination of time zone tanking and also just how long it takes to reinforce and re-reinforce and take down even the most basic structures? Does that have any impact on you guys, or from a market perspective, makes little to no difference?
Not until the last timer. Irrelevant until then.
Well, it makes it impossible to have more destruction. That means that it's bad for the economy.
Yeah, let's look at what the pandemic horde has to go through. They have to go through 2 weeks just to even start shooting the structures. So
I mean, it doesn't make sense why you need you need 2 war deck periods basically to kill a single structure in Empire now. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, and if you consider the cost, right, that's maybe the most important thing. The value of everything smaller than extra large, right, is still within the realm of something that should be able to be killed a lot faster. Especially the medium size. They should basically be able to be popped for nothing. They are on a cost level with what, a Macarial now?
Yeah.
I'd say no, maybe not that, but it is really cheap. You could put a Retiro down for like 700 mil or something like that.
That's ridiculous, man. That's cheap. Yeah, but you know what I mean? It doesn't, like, if anything, maybe it shouldn't be universal. Maybe it can be scaled, you know, like what Caleb was saying, you know, medium structures die faster and it just scales from there.
Yeah.
And what's the limit though? Because then that can kind of, that's gonna be some heated debates on that stuff, especially when talking about.
My favorite one would be to say that only extra large structures have 3 timers, the large have only 2 timers, and the medium has only 1 timer. That would be my favorite solution to this, and it would kind of tie into what's happening with the Blood Raiders.
Some bitch so broken.
Right, about it's only got 2 timers.
Like, a lot of people who don't know me assume I know a lot about Eve, when in reality, I'm just very good at pretending I know what I talk about in Eve. So, like, when it comes to all this PV content, I genuinely, like, a 1-week-old newbie who's done the tutorial knows more about PV in Eve than I do.
Ignorance is in Eve is really not a problem, because you cannot be expected to know everything, and everyone learns something new every day if they play the game right.
Yeah, but I think it behaves like a.
But the point is that the Blood Raider Satios have 2 timers, not 3.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think that's important, because if we could get to the level where the players were able to accept this, because I've been talking about many of these problems with Dirk endlessly, right? And what he keeps pointing out is, and I'm pretty sure that Apotny knows this from pen and paper, if you give your players something really OP for too long, taking it back is going to be extremely difficult.
Wasn't that my argument? Never give the players something too OP, right?
Yeah, you said it too, Eric. I've been having this conversation with quite a lot of people. And the funny thing is that there's always someone going to whine saying, well, you can't take my structures, or you can't nerf my Titan. It's like, well, it has to be done. Otherwise, the game is unplayable. And if you would prefer to have the game being unplayable just so you can sit there and hug your waifu pillow, no one is going to benefit. We're all going to see Eve just decline and become boring. It's already what I've been seeing since 2009. I think it's been made way too much into easy mode.
Is it because now? Do we think they're OP simply because they are pushed out of the production line as already OP, or is it because we interacted with it in a way that CCP was not anticipating, and now they're like, oh shit, we did not anticipate you guys to, you know, do that, and now it's super OP now.
Well, as I was trying to
interject here, I am a young man in EVE Online, Caleb. This is something referred to fairly often, but do you think that your assertion that EVE Online being turned into easy mode, is that CCP's doing, or is that really the players doing? Like,
it's a combination.
Year on year, I think it's far more on the players who have created organizations that can spoon feed their members as easily as possible, and thus play the game that way. There are lots of things a lot of groups could do to, in terms of increasing their power level, go up quite rapidly. But it would require effort and experience and people like really putting a lot of effort in to do so. Not just from the 20 people that run each group, but from every line member. And I think that a lot of organizations in EVE are grown to spoon feed the member base. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all.
Let me go to, again, doing the goonsplaining thing, because this ties into the fact that how many rotations do you have on a farm each year? If that is not a limited number, then it scales to infinity. Right now, and you actually brought this up about me, so you know this better than anyone. You asked the most important question, not in this talking station, but the episode before that. You asked Aerith how much capacity was being used in Delve. And he admitted that it was in the realm of between maybe 50 and 75%. And I would guess somewhere in the middle, in around 60, right? That means that the biggest organization in EVE is not even able to max out the productivity and the resource capacity of the region. That makes no sense. That is by design. That is not the player's fault that farm can just be farmed forever at infinite speeds.
Well,
right?
it's not infinite. Goons can reach an upper limit. There will be, if goons keep growing, there will be a point at which they reach 100% capable capacity of Delve, and that
Do the
will
math.
be
Right now we're in a slump. It needs to hit like 35,000 active accounts.
It is a huge barrier, and I'm not against lowering it, but saying infinite, as a mathematician, I have to step in and say it is not infinite. And I think that is one of the interesting
farms and
points.
Fields of your neighbor, right? If you don't really need it, because you don't need to move, right?
I absolutely agree.
I think I want
interesting...
Flight of the Locust, right? I want goons to be forced out to get resources with their neighbors, actually go in there and raid them like proper raiders. And I want everyone to then need to defend themselves. That's what I would like to see in EVE. And there was a lot more of this behavior in the past. I know that I'm a little bit being nostalgic. It might not have been that much as I remember it, but there was more to fight over.
Well, I think that, there are multiple things. I think that it will be interesting that if CCP either lower the upper limit of what you can produce from a single region and thus force goons to expand if they want better income. Obviously, other people would be having to reach that point as well for it to really be a thing. But I think that a lot of the quietness of the game is partly due to the age, because, we are in the days where all the alliance leaders know each other. Wars still happen, but there is a status quo that benefits the few people at the top. And even with World War B, even with the last couple of wars, that hasn't changed, and that's not changing. It is X-Death is still making money in the East for years,
but
and still
you do
will
know
be.
that something that really motivates war is hungry people.
But you also need a situation where the hungry people are being pointed in the right direction to sate themselves and not just out of the game.
So you're saying the decision makers aren't really upset with what's going on right now? They're pretty happy with what's happening.
I'm not saying they're happy. I'm saying that, let's say you had the ability to properly wage a war against one of the main coalitions. Like, watch Jintan's videos for an explanation of what those are and where they are in their agreements with each other. Let's say you had that. Is it a better outcome for you personally as Alliance leader in terms of the effort you have to put in and the value for your effort to wage a massive fuck-off war for 2 years and basically quit your real-life job to run it? Or is it better to go, look, I'm a massive force, give me a region and I'll fight for you. Or give me this constellation and I'll fight for you. The effort versus reward in terms of what is fun for you as the Alliance leader, as the campaign commander, is very, very difficult, right? Like, ProGod Legend is very famous for saying, no, or was it, I think it may have been ProGod, who was like, I will absolutely run a campaign against whoever you want, but you have to pay my salary for 6 months, because that's what it requires. At the very top level of engaging in these huge wars, it has become more and more and more, throughout the history of the game, a full-time job for more and more people to engage in that kind of war. So as this is a game, as this is a thing people do for fun outside of their main job or their study or whatever, is it better for the people in the key decision-making positions to wage that war and go through all that effort, or functionally get the same amount of value for their players and just have proxy wars and skirmishes that are kind of like wars, so people still have fun, fights still exist, and even if it's not intentional, even if you're just convincing yourself that it's better off to not change the status quo, to not like what am I trying to say? To not make your life harder than you need to.
Let me take your argument, because you're talking about this is just a game argument. I've heard this so many times. Can we in this room agree that when you're talking about the difference between, say, a board game or a casual game and a sport, the difference is that the sport is a lot closer to reality and it's a lot more engaging than playing tic-tac-toe?
This is true, but you can't make a salary playing EVE Online unless you are being very naughty.
Oh, that's just about where the strain is and whether you need to work for several hours a day. That's not what I'm talking about. It's about if everyone has a ball when they're playing football, soccer, Eric, there's no game. It's just boring. Everyone was just, goals will mean nothing, right? That's what we have in EVE right now. We have a tendency of moving towards the point where just hit spacebar to respawn, just type Control FUND to get more money. All these things, it's becoming not fun. You can't win. Well, you can win in being the biggest organization, being the most organized, or being the most edgy, or the most trolly, whatever your thing and shtick is in the meta. But you can't actually win on field.
How is that different from how it used to be? How is EVE fundamentally different that your golden age of EVE is no longer the case?
Well, let's not call it golden age, but
sure. But why was EVE any better before?
Well, when you got your assets destroyed, it hurt a lot more in the past because of things like asset creep, right? It's just been creeping and creeping and creeping. This is simply the rule of 72. If you have something that accretes with like 1 or 2%, the doubling time is very easy to calculate. You know that as a math with.
Sure,
right?
but at the same time,
when we have 10 years of this.
Yeah, but the as well, nobody is fighting wars of extinction. You know, people absolutely, if there is the slightest chance they will not win a war, even if they are going to win the war, they will get their assets in low sec. They will make their assets safe. The asset safety is more important to every organization than throwing everything at the opponent. There is no... One of my big things in the PvP world is I hate when the commitment to power ratio of doctrines is bad. By which I mean, if you look at Serbs, if you look at Ishtars in the day, they are two doctrines that are very, very, very good at fucking off. They are very, very good at leaving. They are very, very fast. They are very, very small sig-wise. They warp quite quickly. They are very, very good at getting out of bubbles and getting the hell out of dodge. They also happen to have really good DPS, really good DPS application. This means this, in my opinion, is why they were so popular. They were so broadly usable because they were so good at having a high power level for a very low committal, which means that you could use them to do tasks without having to commit hard to it, which means that you would be willing to do those tasks. If you're in a place where you can only do tasks, by having to put your assets on the line, where assets have to be lost to do so, far more than, oh, I lost 3 ships, then
but
bigger, more assets. But the problem with that is that when that happens, nobody wants to fight because you're too risk averse anyway.
If everyone gets F-35s and if everyone flies Comanches and stealth bombers and stuff like that, there is no complexity of the field. It's not an interesting war anymore. It's like if money is no longer an issue, then creating doctrines is just like Mercurial fleets. It's ridiculous, right?
Well, one of the interesting things actually is that I would say that fleet combat has more moving parts than before, with in the introduction of such things as command destroyer, forced on-grid links. It is subtle changes like this that are pushing more moving parts, more subtlety, more complexity in fleets.
That's very, very funny when it's just for funs and giggles and only a simulation or an AT tournament. But if it's for actual assets, the fact that you don't have to think about cost at all makes the game slightly ridiculous.
I don't think that that's necessarily true. I think that a lot of wars are not fought because people can't afford don't have the bank in their SRP. Like, I think that because it is a game, it is not real life, people are not willing to do the wars if they cannot afford them. If loss is destruction, then people will not engage in the first place. They won't even start along that path. And I think that in a game where it is not your real life, that is a extraordinarily difficult thing to overcome. Because you don't have to. You just don't have to.
But we just saw the Blood Raiders failing miserably because the one thing that the AI did not actually consider was that anyone would scale down, right? And we never see that in fights. Everyone always ups. Cost, value, manpower. There's never the situation where you see someone saying, okay, we have to either save on manpower, so we have to shift into a different type of doctrine where the power distribution is different, or we need to say, well, we can't actually afford all this high-level bling, but we have a lot of manpower, so we go down to using fire ships and kamikaze strategies and stuff like that.
That absolutely does happen.
Yeah, but I'm saying that it doesn't happen so much out of strain or how long a war have been going on or something like that. We don't see these I call it complicated battlefields or warfares as you would in real life.
I kind of think this ties into what you were saying about how goons can only use so much of Delve. Back in like the real height of the CFC, we saw them field maybe 2 or 3 DPS fleets and then an E-War fleet. So there was that diversity in having a bunch of fleets. It may be the case, and I don't necessarily believe this to be true, but I think it's one of the possibilities to be true, that if we had 200k people online all the time rather than 30k, we would see this stuff. It may just be the case that the design space of EVE is built around, unintentionally or intentionally, much larger groups, so that when you are smaller, there are things that don't quite happen because of the requirements. Like if we were up in the crazy player numbers, all of these things, the running out SRP, where we're maxing out, that might be the case. I don't know whether that means we have to make the universe smaller. I don't know whether that means that CCP needs to do some goddamn marketing and commit to it. Like, I don't know. But I have this sneaky suspicion that the game looks a lot different and potentially a lot better when we have 200,000 people online at once rather than 30,000. Not that the servers could handle that.
No, not at all, not yet. But I would just like to see some strength, even if it's just like we have that ever returning.
We do see strain, but it's not in.
Strain, right?
We don't see strain in the top level organizations. That's a thing as well. Like people run out of SRP. Like in the World War Weeb, it is the underdog that will run out of money first, because they are not the established power. They have not been farming nullsec for the past 10 years, so they will always be the one to run out of money first.
And that ties into the whole thing with redistribution of wealth. What are the overheads? What are the costs of things like the meta and all that stuff? I would like to see some more complexity. I'd like to see some introduction of bottlenecks in some sense and some more competition, something to actually fight for. Even if it's just something like mineral resources, let's just make some of them a little bit difficult to source when you only live in one region. So the neighbor has a little bit more.
I don't know if they'll ever do that, man.
That's economy 101. If everyone can build their own banana farm and an apple farm, why would you need to trade at all?
Well, if you have a group where one region is the best, the next region is the next best, the next region is the next best, and onwards, or whatever, the most powerful group will control the best system, which will make the most powerful group increasingly more the most powerful group because they've got the most income. Right?
But
so if the most powerful group can build the most super caps, then they'll keep building the most super caps.
How many oranges for bananas, or how many apples for oranges? We're not talking about one region being better than another. You could make it some sort of equal ground from if it's worth the same on average, but the distribution of things in it is different. So you have to trade with your neighbor.
Then why wouldn't you just say, I can either trade with my neighbor, or because I'm the most powerful group in the game, I'll just take both regions and no one can stop me?
Well, that would create some gameplay too, right? If suddenly goons would need to spread thin again, right, Eric?
Well, I don't think you're ever going to see spreading thin again under this SOB system, right? You just can't do it. I'm not a fan of making resources region specific. I don't mind them being in a region, but Apothny said something that I was thinking about saying earlier. You got too many systems. You got way too many systems. You know, if your player base goes up, add some more in, but we need to take some out right now, and that'll thin a lot of what you're talking about
But
out.
the other problem with taking them out, that means that smaller groups don't have space to go and take space. Like, you're screwed in either direction, right? There are arguments being screwed in either direction. If we reduce the amount of space, like, already, if you are a new, young group, say you've been in low-sec, fighting in faction warfare, and you're like, right, I want to make my way into Null, where exactly do you take right now that isn't coalition-owned, or has non-invasion agreements that coalitions, the people who live there already have non-invasion agreements that the current coalitions will back them up on as content and third-partying?
Within one jump freighter jump from LOSEC, nothing.
Well,
Yeah,
exactly.
exist.
So less systems, again, we're screwed either way. Like, I'm not trying to say that Eve is screwed. I'm trying to say that I haven't got a damn clue what a solution is.
I mean,
Well,
it's,
I'll argue that Eve isn't for the 100-man corp that thinks they should own 5 systems in nullsec either.
How do you make a bigger than 100-man corp at the moment? How do you go from nothing to a huge corp?
Well, it's pretty easy. I mean, what I would do is I would take a corp, I would join a coalition, I would build on that, and then I would decide
Then
what I wanted to do later.
why would you ever leave a coalition?
I come from Goons, right? So why would you want to? I have far more things for my players to do in Goon Swarm than I could ever give them if I was a 500-man coalition.
Yeah, so it is so much easier to create a new group and become big in a coalition and thus continue on the status quo. Why would you ever leave a coalition is exactly my point.
But I mean, look at, if you want trade, if you want all those things, you're only going to trade with your friends anyway. You're not going to trade with your enemies.
So you're just talking about in-coalition trading, but that's just who owns all the space. So that is Imperium owning, all the different apples and bananas and oranges and pears all around the system and trading within the Imperium, within that coalition.
Yeah, I'd love it if there were 5 Imperiums in Eve, or 10, just as big, right?
But that's my
then
point.
Then you could have some fights.
Well, how do you ever create a new Imperium? It is so much easier and so much better for the leader of a new group to just join the Imperium and just use all that shit, make big, live their fantasy of being an elite spaceship CEO of their corporation. Why would you ever then leave Goons?
Build a new story. Make a myth.
But
find some personalities that are worth actually assembling around, right?
But find people for whom it's worth it to do, though. Why would you ever do that? It's so much effort. And also, if you're joining the Imperium, if you're joining all that stuff, you're kind of not averse to taking the easy road in the first place.
Actually, joining the Imperium is a little bit the lazy mode, and
yeah,
the thing is that a few good men can do a lot of stuff in Eve if it's the right people. It's why I'm so surprised that no one is actually stepping up and playing the meta game with Goons and against Goons and creating an organization that has everything represented. The fact that someone with charisma can't gather the people around them. It's pretty much the old guys still sitting around in their rocking chairs just telling everyone what to do. I don't really understand that.
I wanted to be that guy. Right? Like, I wanted to become a big FC, learn all my shit. I joined Waffles to learn how to be an FC. I joined PL to do so. And, I've been at the point multiple times where I kind of want to leave and start my own alliance. That'll be cool. That'll be fun. But then I look at, I'm doing my degree. I've just been doing with my girlfriend.
Route is good. I don't think you're going to get it by that.
I don't have the effort or the like. If I was unemployed with a salary out of nowhere for the next 10 years, I would 100% do what you're talking about. But because EVE Online is a game and I have a real life, I cannot do that. I just cannot. And
No, you can't do it alone.
I think that there are people who go along that path while they're a student or while they have that period in their life where they have the time, where they have the energy, where they have the effort to input into that. But at some point, they start families or they get jobs. So there is no more growth of that. So it is only in the pre-existing groups. And like saying that, oh, just get like 100 people who are all that motivated together. There aren't a fucking 100 people in the game with that level of motivation. If there were...
You keep talking about this as if it's motivation level only and time spent in the game that's going to matter. I will oppose that at all times because it's not. It's the right people. And you can do it with very low effort if you get the right people. And that very much ties into creating your own culture, creating your own myth and narrative, and gathering around a few good leaders. They don't even have to spend that much time. Of course, in June, we're talking about...
Please talk to any Null Block FC. Please have like a 10-minute conversation with them and you will drastically change your perspective.
I would never have an FC be the leader of an organization.
You cannot not have an FC. You can't not do that.
Well, Mittens never FCs. Come on.
Exactly.
Okay.
Most people that lead don't.
If you are a young upstart fighting PvP organization, it has to be an FC in charge. You
just need an FC. You need to have an FC that's really good and also charismatic that is supporting the leader. I think it's called a beta.
But
not this red pill beta.
But the leadership always provides limits or doesn't understand. The only way that could ever work is if the leadership gave the FC 100% free reign to do whatever the hell the FC wanted and the leader would back them up. That is the only way that would work. That's the only reason PL works. It is one of the reasons that Jin Tan is struggling so much. Jin Tan is a charismatic guy. He's a solid up-and-coming FC. And he is restrained by the membership and some of the other leaders in Providence. Not because they're bad people. Not because they hate PvP. Not because they hate him. Just because their goals and their ambitions and their understanding of what an FC needs is so limited compared to what an actual FC understands. You need FCs at the top level of organizations that are going to be involved in serious null block PvP. That is the only way it can work.
Let me just argue with reality. Do you know why all failed states are run by generals?
I mean, real life and EVE, this is one thing where...
No, it's the same thing. When it comes to organizational style and psychology of the people that you need to create an organizational group that works and operates and have the right social mechanics in it, you cannot have a general aggressive bulldog running the organization.
I'm not saying a general aggressive bulldog. It has to be a absolutist. You need absolutist. So think Frederick the Great.
Someone that can bridge between different types of play. You need a mediator. You need someone that can be appeasing. Someone because this whole thing of
I agree there, but I'm saying that person needs to be an FC.
Never.
Of that, yeah. I agree with A-Pop there. You gotta have someone that at least understands.
Look at any group in EVE Online right now in Null who have fought their way to power through PvP, right? That haven't just made an agreement to join a coalition. It is the FCs who are in charge. In the case of the Imperium does a really good job at listening to what the FCs need. When it is wartime, they are listening to the FCs. They're going, this is the reality. Mittens, on every talk show he goes on, he will happily talk about, whenever we do this, I do not go my way. I listen to whoever knows what the hell most about is what's going on and does that thing.
Yeah, but that's not why. But that's not why Goonswarm is successful. Look at what makes a successful organization. The leader understands how to listen. That's what you said, but not just listen to the FCs. Listen to his players.
Which includes everyone in his organization, including the industrialist, the economist, everyone, regardless of player type. And what I'm saying is that many FC types tend to be the very, shall we call it, testosterone-driven people.
It's true, but
they
if you're
usually become
talking
very
about needing
successful.
those charismatic leaders, it's the charismatic leaders leading the fleets. Is
Okay,
it not?
let me use a gorilla analogy. If you have a very young gorilla male that takes the position of leader, he is usually stressing the entire group for a long time until he starts feeling certain. The testosterone leader is not healthy for an organization. You need someone that is more mellow, that is capable of appeasing everyone and making sure that they are working. And I'm just saying, if you look at Goons and you think that it's a testosterone dominance-driven organization, you're wrong. It's the exact opposite.
We're not talking about an already established huge thing with an organizational structure. We are talking about a new group starting up. And those are two very different beasts.
Yeah, but the point is that if you have a good situation, you usually have what's called a beta. That's the enforcer. You need an FC that has those traits, but it has to be driven and run by a mellow and appeasing and mediating alpha.
Okay, so show me. I'm not even disagreeing with you anymore. Show me in EVE all the alliances that have made it. Show me their core organizational structure, whether it was led by a cult of personality FC or whether there was somebody in charge who was not the FC who did all this delegation stuff and from the ground up built up everything.
Well, it's hard to come up with examples because what you see now is one functional.
I can come up with a ton
group
that were started by FCs. I think Goonswarm at the beginning, I could be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure at the beginning when Goonswarm did its thing, it was the couple of FCs who were making the decisions and running a lot of the stuff when they were up and coming. ELO Knight and Black Legion is a fantastic example of this. Pandemic Legion is a fantastic example of this. There are so many groups where it is the main FCs who are the charisma, who are the leader. They are the people in the trenches on the fleets doing all the work. Not doing all the work, but they are the people. The people who, when you are a PvP group, when you're doing PvP things, your engagement with other players in that group, when you are mostly together, when you are working as a team, happens mostly on fleets. And the person in charge, the person who is most visible then is the FC. It is, I would argue that it is extraordinarily difficult to have that charisma and portray that charisma and have that motivating leader that keeps the membership going, who isn't an FC or who isn't on every fleet with the FC functionally also being an FC.
The problem is that I fundamentally disagree. There's a few exceptions to that. Where there are FCs that have both traits. There's people like Laz and Elise that have both the very effective general attitude that can really run a military operation, but I don't see them then building something that compensates them around them, right? Because that's really my argument here. The reason that no one is challenging Goons is because no one is taking the time sitting down saying, okay, we need everything, every wheel, every cog in this machine to work. If we are missing a financial advisor, if we are missing a good industrialist, if we are missing a mystic culture internally, if any of these things breaks down, you don't have a functional group. You just have a casual group, is what I would call it.
I absolutely agree with you. I absolutely agree with that statement. I think that your concept of the role an FC takes in a large group when they are a leadership FC, I'm not sure your perception of what that is and what they do is necessarily accurate, at least in my experience.
I'm just saying that the cost of acquiring talent is going up because Goons are eating all of it.
And people retire to PL as well. Like PL eats a ton of talent. Like that's the story of PL, right? We absorb the good people from the alliances we kill.
I think one of the things that you're perhaps missing is, right, you look at all of the large organizations, and Goons is obviously the largest, right? And when you look at those organizations, you're capped out when you have those FCs leading, okay? Unless you're able to transform your management structure to handle a larger group, you're never going to have one as big.
And it's funny because this ties into market stuff, just to get on to our actual intention of the show. It's the same I see with some traders, right? They can't change from one scale or tier to another. So when they reach these steps, they get stuck in a rut. They just sit there and they keep doing the same thing, trading the same thing in the same style, and they never get to the next tier. I was talking to one of the guys in the lounge today, and he had basically exploded into the 100 billion range and was flattening out, plateauing totally, right? Because he kept doing the same thing. And you can't do that. You need to find a new strategy. And it's the same with an organization. What's that? Someone in Goon said this at one point, and I was actually, I never heard it like that. He was not a Goon, he was INN, but staff. He said, when you triple the number of people in your organization, it falls apart if you do not change the structure and organization.
Sure.
That's a lot of change when you are on a growth pattern, right? Every time you triple, you need to change the organizational structure. You need to change everything.
Agree with you.
And the other one is, once you kick goons out of their space, don't start farming each other. I mean, that's true. I mean, I don't say that just be like a troll or anything. I mean, you guys had the forming of a really good organization, and you let it fall apart.
Well,
everybody else, not everybody.
Nobody
not folks
wanted,
here. Not pointing fingers.
Nobody wanted. I think nobody wanted to create the next Imperium. It was a war against having such a large, powerful group. People didn't want everyone to be all grouped up as the Imperium is. Like, the entire plan from the get-go was, we'll blow up, we'll kick goons out for whatever motivation each group has, and then we will unblue, and we will not be the next mega organized group.
Yeah, that didn't work out. That.
I mean, you just told me that we were all farming each other afterwards, so.
We did.
Everyone in Eve tend to be a little bit predatory, and when there's no more grazers, they start eating the other predators.
Like, you can't both spin the story that we created the next mega coalition, and we also didn't create the next mega coalition.
Well, no, I said you had the beginnings of it, right? You really had the opportunity to have people talking and form larger organizations.
Yes.
But that was allowed to fall apart, right? For whatever reason. And by the way, I'm not knocking people, because I get everybody saying they didn't want it. But the goal was to fail Cascade Goons, but that wasn't going to happen.
I don't think the goal was to fail Cascade Goons. Like, that's not my understanding of it.
Well, we said it was to, never have an organization as big as Goons again, right? But Goons never went away. They're just bigger.
I mean, Goons were kicked out of their space and now occupy much less of the map.
Well, the coalition is different, right? Goons itself is still the same.
Sure, but I don't think... I think very few people who were involved in it, or were like the driving people behind it, expected to outright kill Goons and Goon Swarm Federation to close its doors. I don't think that was a stated
I would
goal.
agree with you there, but I would think the smaller groups disagreed with that. They really thought that it was going to boom. Right?
Well, that's people being wrong.
And then sometimes you need to be very smart in how you branch, right? It's some of the things that I see people not using very well. When they grow, they don't make new seeds in organizationally based on trust level and hierarchy and stuff like that. So then they get this top heavy, and then they just topple over, and then they collapse.
I mean, we are all laboring under the assumption here that the goal for organizations is growth.
Yeah, but
like a lot of alliances want
to
be a specific size to achieve their goals and be no bigger, because the more people you absorb, if the game isn't growing, then the less other people there are to shoot.
Yeah, but I think you're right there.
Compartmentalization, right? Eric, I'm pretty sure that you can carry on from this. Organizations in the real world, when you're talking about corporations, if they reach about, I think it's a 10,000 mark, they have to split up. They have to separate into smaller entities, and then have sort of like a governing body that's more loosely affiliated, and they see them as entities in and by themselves. just under the same umbrella. And if you don't do that, it's the whole Dunbar number and all that. It doesn't work. You can't manage more than 10,000 people in the same organization. That's why they always split into branches.
But are those branches still allied and form what is functionally a coalition, like an imperium? Like, what level of distribution are we talking here?
We're talking the same kind of the same as you see in the Imperium, right? It's not just goons. It's several entities that are collaborating, but they are still unique entities.
Yeah.
You might not see it on the outside, but they're very unique, both culturally,
Yes.
leadership-wise, and all these
Absolutely.
things. And that's
I agree
very
with
necessary.
you. And I agree. But the point of what I'm saying is that groups say that we do not want to grow, so that we don't want to be a part of this big thing. We like the ability to shoot as many other people as possible, and we only want as many people that are the people we like and are the people to be able to achieve shooting the people we want to shoot. And there's no PL does not, to my knowledge, want to double in size. That is not a long-term plan for PL to double in size and to
That's why you have apotheosis. You have natural cell death. A body that is not in growth is dying. That's why you need to shoot some people if you want to stay in the same size.
I mean,
some people never.
It's not a body that's not in growth. It's just like you just got to keep it going.
Yeah, some folks only want a 10-man, organization or 100-man or whatever it is, right? But you have to understand that if that is your decision, you're not entitled necessarily to live in nullsec.
I absolutely agree with you.
Right. So, I mean, that's one thing I don't like about designing the game so that a small group can do everything, right? Just can't.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, I think EVE offers a lot of different things for a lot of different sized groups. And I think that's one of its strong points. I don't know what I'm going to say. I have no point.
That's true. I mean, I guess it's when we see, kind of like in the beginning, a few years ago, you didn't jump into nullsec as quickly or as readily as you see like legit new players doing these days. Like it took me like months to get into nullsec, but it meant a lot to get there. But these days, people are just like
it would be super cool if lowsec became the breeding ground for groups to move into null. Not that you had to do it. Lowsec groups can be lowsec groups, but if it were the case where the shadow cartels and the snuff boxes of the world, if they don't want to, they don't have to. But lowsec becomes a place where groups can go from nothing to getting a bit of PvP experience, to getting that stuff, to get to the point where they have the valid minimum requirement to get into nullsec or whatever the hell that is.
My wish is to see some more disruption. What I hope is to see some groups actually challenging each other in a real way, and not these mock fights that looks more like a seasonal rut.
How does that happen?
Well, you need somebody who's an upstart leader trying to start some trouble.
Maybe an FC.
Or maybe
not
someone
necessarily
that's
an FC,
able to create wealth or to gather troops. It's all a matter of making sure that you focus on the disruption and target the actual weaknesses of your enemy, right?
Yeah, at the end, it's easier to just join, right? And experience it anyway that way.
And then why leave? You've already got it so good.
Yeah.
And we've just defined the blue donut.
Yeah.
When it is not an existential crisis, as it is in real life, like you die, like why would you not just join Imperium, play all the parts of the game you want to play, and live the easy life? Like, why would you not do that for your fun game time? Like, the Imperium is a fantastic place to be in EVE, depending on your goals.
Yeah, I mean, does it matter in the end? Is it, for the growth of EVE, the game, does it matter that people can be in a position to just be dormant and fat? Is that
we can't do the whole let's take turns on scoring goals. That's not a football match. It's not fun. You can restart the game.
What's
but
fun to you is not necessarily what is fun to other people, Caleb.
No, but it's not. This is about the fact that you don't feel any achievement if you don't have genuine competition. Then it's like play fighting with your kid.
Who says that people are searching for achievement?
That's a good point.
I don't know. I just
Like,
think
who
that's the
says
whole
there are a
unique
bunch
point
of guys
everything,
who, like,
right, that it's
they
a
just want to
simulation.
get home from work, log on comms, mine with their bros. Like, when I started EVE, I loved mining. I got bored of it because my friends stopped mining. But I would just do my homework whilst mining in a fucking... I think I was in a T1 frigate, just with the old mining lasers, and just mining. Chill. And if I were in that game mode, if that was my goal for EVE, I would be in the Imperium. Like, I would hunt... That's where I would be. That's the best place to do that, right?
Pretty much. So you're saying we should all join the Imperium and stop playing?
No,
please.
I'm saying that different people have different goals in the game, and that's okay, but it has certain results.
Well,
So-
I think you can do everything in the Imperium that you can do in Test and various other CO2, probably the same thing. Just different levels of organization.
I disagree with that statement.
You can't do mining and industry and production and then go out on fleets and do a little PvP rooms every once in a while on those guys.
Well, you
think
can't
that,
take space for your name is kind of the thing. That like people like Elo and Black Legion and stuff, they like to go and fight for their alliance's name, but it's Elo doing that. And if you're fighting with Alliance of Imperium, then who's going to take the credit for it? It's going to be the top levels of Imperium, pretty much.
it's also worth saying that, for example, when I went from Waffles to PL, there becomes a very, very different type of engagements that you get in PvP. Like, and also the willingness of people to engage you, the willingness of people to engage you with the less. Like, you cannot tell me that people coming to have PvP with goons aren't aware of your Supercat fleet and aren't aware that you can blob them and thus have to change their tactics.
Oh, sure. I mean, but we've had, 30-man, T3 fleets come in through wormholes and cause chaos in systems.
Sure, but it is certainly a limiting factor. Like, not in terms of the name of what you can do, but how you do it and how it feels. Like, where if we go to the achievement thing, it is not a achievement necessarily in goons to win fights because you have all these resource, all this backing, like, and all this stuff. It absolutely can be, and the goons can achieve great things. I'm just saying that if I was, like, I personally wouldn't join goons for my goals in the game. Like, I'm also, like, I find it difficult in PL sometimes for the goals I have in game because I enjoy winning not because I had more or because I had more money to put on field or whatever, but because, like, we tried harder in terms of our ship flying, in terms of what we prepared. And that's why, like, that's one of the reasons I love this current PL deployment, because we don't have the big toys for this. So we are on a hull level, on a what we can bring to the field, just the same as the Provi or the CO2 or the Test. And they have more dudes than we do. Like, they can bring more dreads if they want to. They can bring more faxes if they want to. But PL are winning just because of, like, and sometimes winning, not always winning, because of, like, pushing the theory crafting and pushing the intellectual challenge. And it's the intellectual challenge that really interests me in EVE, and also why I love the Alliance tournament as well.
Are we in a position then where there, from any large group social scale, there is no more natural conflict that we have to kind of, that's got to come from the individual now instead of the actual game space?
It would take someone with a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of raw charisma and ability to disrupt things. And those people are few and far between, and a lot of them retire to PL or wherever.
It's like they're on our side now. It's cool.
All the young workers are in goons, and all the old guys are hanging out in the retirement homes in PL. I think we've classified the problem in you.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm a young guy. I'm a young guy in PL, as the game goes.
You're an outlier. Maybe it's some sort of pederasty.
Hey, man, like, the PL80 team this year, it's got a lot of young people on it. A lot of younger players, relatively speaking. Like, we're not talking Brave Newbies young, but we're talking, like, a couple years into the game.
What's
wow,
young,
that's
like
impressive.
30?
I'm 25.
Young man.
Anyway, I think it may be time for us to potentially wrap up, chaps.
Probably.
Yeah, I think
Hey,
so.
thanks for inviting me, guys. Good talk. I got a lot of good ideas for some articles from you guys. You guys are great.
Oh, there you go. Motivation.
Nice content.
Always happy to shoot the shit. Just
No,
preferably
not
not
like
at
that.
2 a.m. in the morning.
You guys know I'm not. Caleb, you know I'm not that way. I mean, I like being in goons, but doesn't mean I hate everybody else, right?
No, I was just quoting Jebby. He keeps yelling it on
Oh,
screen.
okay.
So to wrap it up, any predictions on where we are going to be in EVE on a personal level when we start hitting Vegas and Winter Patch? Roden?
I am I'm not gonna be making it to Vegas again. Sucks. But I'm really hoping that we're gonna see the type of AI with the Blood Raider Sotillo to hopefully be present in HiSec by then. Hopefully, that'd be great. Or just word on how they want to execute that kind of update. I think it's going to be huge. I really think that EVE is ready for a population explosion, but it's not going to come from from Asakai. It's not going to come from BR tags. It's going to come from just good old fashioned PVE and good old fashioned enjoying the game because it's a game. Apart from the meta, I think some people just can't grasp that right from the beginning, at least.
Veronica, where are you going to be come winter, and how rich are you going to be?
Probably still the same amount of wealth that I have right now. But I'll try to make it to Vegas. I should be living close to nearby there, so if you're going there, I'll try to make it. But yeah, I think that EVE will grow just by organic word of mouth is what I think. That's how it's like really taken off for the most part, in my opinion. But
so you believe in the growth?
Join. Sorry?
You believe in the growth. You're sure we're out of the rut and the slump.
I think for the next couple months we'll still be pretty stagnant, but when school starts again and all that, I think it will pick up a little bit.
Sounds good. Apothony, what are you going to be doing come winter?
So winter, we'll just finish the Alliance tournament, and then either I will be in PL or I won't be in PL.
Ooh.
Exciting. Eric, what are you going to be doing come winter?
Well, I'm definitely
Not
going
golfing
to
anymore.
I golf in the winter. No, let's see. I will be at Vegas, so if anybody's there, we'll have a few beers or whatever your favorite beverage is. And I think winter is going to be very interesting. However, I think EVE remains stagnant, not from profitability, because I think they'll have profitability through the other things they're selling, but player base will remain stagnant until CCP decides on a real marketing plan.
I think the turn came to me. I think I will be busy heckling CCP Quant about when we're going to see some of all those big financial and market-oriented dreams. And I think it's going to be the beginning of an explosion, because if I'm not mistaken, the date for the Project Nova to actually launch is somewhere around December 15 or 17. So we might just go explosive in EVE. And, well, the scary part would be...
Whoa. Nova launching? At FanFest we were told it's being worked on, but we can't say anything yet. Like how do you get from that to launched in December?
Read the EVE Guardian. I'm linking to the biomass thing. There's plenty of content. I'm even sure that there's an article on INN, and I think they have the date too. They are planning or hoping for something in December, middle of December, 15, 17, I think.
Breaking into the FPS market is certainly not an easy thing to do.
No, but it's going to be interesting, especially because they will get seeding from the existing EVE player base. And I do think that there's a lot of people that have been waiting for something like that for a while.
So does EVE grow because of people going into that game and coming to EVE, or does EVE lose players because we all go and play Nova and stop playing EVE?
I think you're going to get a cross-seeding from the players in EVE that play FPS that go in there, and then they attract all the players that in the FPS groups that do not play Eve yet, and then you're going to see a cross-pollination that's going to be massive. And the scary part is if they do anything regarding brand unification and maybe even playing Project Nova for Plex prices are going to go crazy. That was my tinfoil. I have no clue where it's going to end, but it will be interesting.
It'll definitely crack 3K or 3 million, that's for sure.
You're so good at predicting those Plex prices, yeah.
Yeah, I know. I have a history of it. Don't listen to me. I'm worse than Lockbox.
All right. Well, I guess that's everybody, right?
Indeed, I think that's a wrap.
All right. Well, thank you very much, guys. Thank you again to all our guests. Great start for our new series here. This was episode 1, and definitely do our best to keep up with our schedule, and of course have this ready, YouTube ready for easier consumption and all that, SoundCloud, all the things. And I think that's it. Well, thank you very much again for everyone, and hopefully see you again next week.
Take it out.